Welcome to ArtsWestchester Virtual Art Workshop. My name is Dhanashree Gadiyar and I am a teaching artist with ArtsWestchester. So today we will be learning a little bit about Indian folk art forms, their influences. I will be mainly demonstrating Gond art workshop using coffee, which is a material that's available at everybody's houses, right? So all you need is instant coffee powder. Okay, I'm going to show you quickly how to make the mixture. Super easy. I usually just use one tone, but you can use two tones actually. You can make a darker tone for which you will need lesser water and more coffee powder. So I'm putting about, let's say 3 tablespoons for the darker tone. So this one's going to be the darker color, and about 1 tablespoon for the lighter one. You can use any instant coffee powder, anything that you have available at home.
If you don't have instant coffee at home, you can absolutely go ahead and work with other spices that you might have in the kitchen. For example, nutmeg, cinnamon, turmeric, or any other spices that you might have handy and ready to use in the kitchen. Just add a little bit of water at a time to make sure that your pigment is still dark, and just go from there.
And I'm going to put some water. I put about 1 tablespoon of water. I'm going to give it a nice stir. You can check the consistency. I think it's still thicker. So I'm just going to go ahead and add 1 more tablespoon of water. So that's my darker tone mix. And here I am going to put about 2 tablespoons. So the darker tone has 2 tablespoons and the lighter tone has 2 tablespoons. Actually, I might go ahead and add another extra tablespoon of water for the lighter tone. So again, like this has 2 tablespoons of coffee powder and 3 tablespoons of water. This has 1 tablespoon of coffee powder and it has 3 tablespoons of water. So coffee is a beautiful material. We all use it in our kitchens every day. That's what wakes us up in the morning. So here's a little painting that I did. There are so many other things that you can do with coffee. So here's a little bit. So this was a freehand painting. Feel free to go ahead and do this too. Here's another one. So this was again just made with, to just give you an example, this was made with the darker tones and this was with the lighter tones. And then I just kept building on it like you would with watercolor. I am using several brushes. Again, you can use any brushes that you have. I'm using these craft brushes that I had. The biggest one that I have is an 8 number brush, and the smallest one that I have is a 0. I have brushes ranging from 1 number, 6 and 5. So these are just some basic materials, and the paper that I'm using actually is a mixed media paper. You can just use any paper that's slightly thicker than a printer paper because you're going to be using water layering, right? So even like a cardstock paper should probably work for this. So I'm just going to go right ahead and start sketching my form. So I'm doing a Gond form of art. So Gond form of art is a tribal form of art. It is done by the biggest tribal groups of India called the Gonds. And this form of art is beautiful. Just as a lot of the other folk art forms of India, they take their main inspiration from nature. In Indian festivals and Indian culture, a lot of nature is worshipped every day. And so this tribal group actually believed that if you worship nature, it would bring you good luck. They would decorate their house, the walls of their houses, the tribal areas, or the poorer areas in India, the villages that don't have a lot of facilities, they actually they paint their walls with their houses are made of mud, and they paint these paintings on the walls, just worshipping nature and hoping that it brings them good luck. So yeah, and a lot of their inspiration comes from nature, like I was mentioning earlier. So in the Gond form of art, you will find a lot of sun is a very popular image. You will find animals, which is another very popular image. So here's a little bit. So it's a deer image. I hope you can see this on the camera. You can actually go ahead and do anything. Like, they also drew a lot of fish. Fish actually was a very common visual image that was used in different forms of art, not just Gaunt form of art. I will talk about other forms of art like Madhubani and Varli painting. So these forms of art also actually used a lot of fish in their forms of art. You can, right now I'm drawing a tree here, as you can see. And tree actually, this is called the tree of life. And I think tree is actually a very commonly found symbol in different cultures. In Gaunt form of art, they use a lot of it. So right now I'm going to jump into painting. So I'm using the darker tone here, and I am actually going to go ahead and give this an outline. So you see, that's the darkest tone that we can make with this. So another technique is, as your paint dries, so as your pigment or your coffee pigment dries, and if you want it darker, you can absolutely go ahead and add more of the same color, and it will give you a darker tone. So right here, I'm using my 5 number brush. I'm just going to go ahead, paint on the tree right here. So the reason actually I chose coffee was, not only is it a very simple material that most of us have in our households, these folk forms of art in India incorporated a lot of natural materials in their art forms. So they used cow dung. Cows are used very commonly in agriculture in India. They're worshipped, especially in the Hindu culture. And so they used cow dung for color. They would use turmeric for color. They use different other materials. I think onions were used for purple. So yeah, and so as you see, this is the lighter color. And if you think that this is darker and you want it to be lighter, you can just go ahead and add another tablespoon of water. I'm just going to add 2 more to really lighten the color. Oh, it's actually still dark. Okay, so what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to add more water. As you see, this is really like a watercolor ink, and you can really play with the tones. And it's actually a good challenge to use monochrome technique of painting, like we see in all the photographs. A black and white photograph is not really black and white if you think about it. It is it has all tones of gray color. And just as an artist, pushing yourself to work with one pigment is always challenging, and it's a good challenge because you develop a very keen sense of color, and you develop a sharper eye. Your observation becomes keener, I guess. And it's just a good challenge, to have limited materials in the studio sometimes is a very, very good challenge. So I do this often, more than not. Just a very good challenge. And speaking about these traditional forms of art, it's passed on from generations to generations. So if a father or a mother did it, then the child would learn this and then passes on to the next generations. There are some tribes in India that still practice this form of art, but kids move out for better opportunities, and some of them actually move away, and they actually use these forms of art to market and to really help build up the importance of these different forms. So that's amazing. And right now the availability, I think the process of making natural colors is very long. It does take a lot of time. So people actually do nowadays use canvas, paper to make these forms of art, though originally they use things like rice paste, like earlier I was mentioning about Varli form of art, and the Varli form of art actually used rice paste to draw their forms. So that's just something. Actually, it would be very interesting, to make paste of, again, like rice is a very commonly used material in everybody's house, to see what would happen with that. So it's a good challenge, especially when you don't have the access to like just go and buy an art material during a pandemic. I think it's a very good challenge to just challenge yourself using new art materials that's available in your household. So right here, I'm outlining this with the darker color. As you see, even though I have the different brushes, the reason I showed these different brushes was to show you, the variety of brushes that you can use while doing this workshop. But you can pretty much just use one brush. Like this is the biggest brush I actually had, the 5 number, and I'm using the tip of the brush to really paint. So a little tip to use to get sharp tips with thicker brushes is to actually dip your brush in the paste, give it a good swirl. When you give it a good swirl, like the ends of your brushes get into one lump, and it's easier to paint that way. So like that. So also talking about the patterning. Patterning is a huge part of any folk form of art in India. You take Madhubani, you take Varli, or you take Gond, like the 3 examples that I'm giving in this workshop right now. They use a lot of, like the Gond form of art actually use line in their patterning. So they give a lot of importance in their lines. Just using a lot of lines in their workshop or in their painting, sorry. So as you see, right now I'm just using one tone and really working on that, the darker tone. And let's say if I want to switch to the lighter tone right here. So you see the difference between the lighter and the darker tone right here. So you can alternate between the two, or you can just continue using one, doesn't matter. I think a lot of these forms of art really came from just decorating simple, decorating and bringing beauty. These are simple forms, simple materials, and just using that and really pushing that. And there are artists that have done this for ages and ages. They've done this for their entire lifetime, which is amazing. So in the Gond form of art, I think it was fairly a male-dominated form. A lot of the fathers and the sons in the same family would do this. I think Madhubani art, the other form of art that I was mentioning about, they also have women doing this form of art. Right there. And I'm just going to use some simple lines here and dots. Again, you can use any geometric patterns you want. All different folk art forms basically use a lot of geometrical forms, lines, dots, triangles. You can use any form of any geometric patterns that you would like to use. Again, I'm just using lines as a way to fill this up. And like if you see like these, this might look very similar to henna. If you are familiar with the henna, which is another traditional form of art, not really done on paper or canvas, but really on a bride's hand, or like the family's hand when a bride gets married. So I think all of these, like there was a lot of cross cultural influence, a lot of different cultures from different parts of the country, or different countries. I think kind of brought these like different influences together. So right here. Again, like feel free to make your changes. Let's say if you want to paint the deer first, give it a coat of color, let it dry, like use the lighter tone here, and once it's dry, you can really start doing the patterning with the brush. Something that I often do is, before I paint on the actual painting, I try and practice a little bit on a scrap piece of paper. I just take a piece of paper and I just really sort of draw on that, like practice the lines. So that really helps. And then once you get it, you're good. Like you get it, and it stays with you forever. So it's a good idea to always practice like really, really thin lines, as thin as your lines can go, with your brush. Paint this one lighter, and this one's slightly darker. And then, I'm just going to go ahead and do a few dots here. You can use any patterns you want. If you want, you can make these little polka dots too. Or you can just leave the tree as is. I just wanted to give you two options. So yeah, I think experimenting with materials that are in your kitchen is a fun idea. It's a good way to keep our hands creative and to come up with new things. So this is just my bit of it today. So little dots right here. And right now, also talking about the support that these different forms of art get. Government of India actually has taken huge leaps in helping, in highlighting these different forms of art now. There are museums, a lot of people that come, visit India from abroad, come and buy these paintings. So, I think there's more awareness now than ever. So I'm just going to go ahead and give these 2-3 little swoops, little swirls right here. So this is my little simple coffee painting, monochrome gone form of art. You can go ahead and do anything. I have 2 more samples. I was talking about 2 other forms of art today. One was Madhubani, so that's one. This is a template, and Warli, that's the other one. So you can actually absolutely go ahead and use the same material and try and experiment making these forms of art too. Thank you so much. If you've enjoyed this virtual art workshop, please visit ArtsWestchester.org for more workshops. Thank you so much.